Hey, come on, somebody. Big Rich here. Hope you're having a great day. Welcome to the podcast. It's been a good time, having a good month. Middle of summer, got a lot going on. On July 3rd, I am at the Vineyards at High Holly in Scally Mountain, North Carolina. One of the prettiest venues I've ever performed at. So if you're in that area or you're looking for a good getaway for the 4th, that is the place. It's an amazing vineyard, and they've got a full-blown restaurant in there that's top-notch, full bar, wine, the view's amazing. It's a professional wedding destination, but when they don't have a wedding, they'll book music, they'll book your favorite comedian, they'll book different stuff. And, nobody gets married on July 4th. Maybe Uncle Sam. I don't know. But I know that weekend we're doing comedy. So the Vineyards at High Holly. Go online, get your tickets, bring your mama and them, come out and have some fun with us. Speaking of, since we're in summer, I was going to talk a little bit today about family vacations, road trips, stuff like that. Growing up, we did a lot of vacations because when you're an only child, your mom and daddy can afford to. When you got an army of kids, it makes it a little more difficult. I was very fortunate. I can remember, we'd go to Panama City, was the first beach that we went to. If you watched last episode, we went to Disney World, did that. But we'd do all kinds of stuff. And my dad had, I listened to a podcast the other day and they were bashing Clark Griswold. He's not a nice guy, blah, blah, blah. And, the way he drug the dog around and denied it. And poor old grandma or the aunt and checking out Christy Brinkley, like who wouldn't? But I'm just saying, I get tickled because the funny parts of old Clark Griswold, I felt like my dad had a little bit of that in him. And I think a lot of dads do. They plan the trips. I talk about in my shows that I grew up at the time, instead of Waze or Google Maps, you had Rand McNally. You might have to Google that one, a Rand McNally map. You go to the gas station, you buy your map, you lay that thing out, try to figure out how to get where you're going. And man, my dad and mama planned a vacation to Okefenokee Swamp Park. Come on, somebody. My daddy had that Rand McNally. He laid it out over the dining room table. I thought he was invading Normandy, brother. My God, what you got planned over there, Dad? He had salt and pepper shaker. He had cotton balls and dental floss, and he's mapping out this thing. And he said, I'm planning our family vacation. I said, where are we going? Here's what you heard in the 1900s that you young bucks don't hear. I was told you'll find out when we get there. Because, see, when you was a kid, you didn't get a vote. Back then, they just said, hey, we're going on vacation. And it was a surprise. I literally didn't know where we was going. And it was kind of cool. But in one sense, I'm like, I want to know, And we had a 1974 Pontiac Grand Prix. And I remember we'd drive, you drove everywhere. I never flew in an airplane till I was grown. My mom and dad, my mother never flew in her life. My dad, one time, he had a job interview in Memphis and he flew there and back, and they weren't afraid of it. They just liked seeing the country. My mother and father have been to every state other than Alaska and Hawaii. They liked their vacations when they got older, meaning when I was old enough to stay home by myself, come on somebody, or was grown, they like to go to like historical stuff, Mount Rushmore. They had where they went and visited the birthplaces of U.S. presidents. They went to national parks. My cousins, Jim and Holly, shout out Jim and Holly, both worked in the National Park Service. My dad would plan trips to national parks based upon where they were living at the time. Because if you ever worked with the Park Service, if you want to move up, you got to move. And they worked at a lot of different national parks. And they would plan their trips so they could go see them. But they also kind of behind the scenes at Yosemite, Yellowstone, Smoky Mountains, all those parks that they worked at. So I can remember my dad went to, if you're old school and you remember Cliff Clavin from Cheers, Cliff Clavin was a postman or mailman. My dad was. So, and my dad's like, man, there ain't none of these guys that give us a good name. Cliff Clavin's not exactly a role model that you want to have. But my dad, he was a know-it-all. He was the bar know-it-all, and he always wore his post office uniform. They had him do that because they're not only thing worse is a poor old UPS guy back in the 1900s. His was all poop brown, and the post office had this old heavy denim looking wool. I mean, hot uniforms, man, just terrible to wear out in the heat. And there's old Cliff there at the bar, doing his thing. Well, my dad took a picture when they were, I think it was at Yellowstone or one of the parks my cousin worked at, and he's standing with his map in front of the park sign behind him. And he's got on his binoculars, a camera, a fanny pack, his sunglasses, his hat's crooked. He's got a water bottle, holding a cooler. He's got all this stuff around him. He's looking at a map. And it was a spoof where, it's like, because my cousin used to say, when you work in those kind of places, you have Turons that show up. That's a half breed or a cross between a tourist and a moron, and they'd call them Turons. So my dad took this picture and called it the ultimate Turon and sent it to my cousin, and my cousin tried to get them to put it on their brochure, and they wouldn't go for it. But I thought it was pretty funny, and that's the kind of sense of humor. My dad was a very humorous guy. I didn't realize it till I got older. And all my friends would tell me, like, man, your dad's funny, man. Your dad cracks me up. And I laugh today about things he did when I was a teenager. And as a teenager, you don't want nobody, you don't want to be around your parents for the most part, or I didn't, unless I had to, had an image to uphold. But they all said, man, your dad was something else. So we would take these road trips, and we'd be in this 74 Pontiac Grand Prix. This car, people, this was a man's car. It had more ashtrays and seatbelts in it, baby. This is a real car. And I could ride in the back glass. If you're over a certain age, you'll remember pillow, blanket, right up in the back glass, all the way to Disney, all the way to the vacation. Because if you didn't ride up there, you had to ride in the middle of the back seat where the hump is. And the hump was the worst seat. Not a good place to sit. So I remember these things and was told, bring something to do while you're in the car. Electronic football game I had, man. If I didn't change a battery, it's a long trip. You got to remember that kind of stuff. Now we got our cell phones. Got to keep them charged. My boys will be like, hey, is your phone charged? They're all fighting to get that phone charger when they were little. Now, even when they ride with me now, they're still plugging them in. But I could remember, we would go places. We did Disney. We never visited family on vacation. My dad says, I love my family, but that's no vacation. Come on, somebody. I'd have to agree. My ex-wife, her mother, God rest her soul, lived in New York City and lived in different boroughs of New York City the whole time I knew her for 30, 40 years. And I never went there because, why? Well, it's New York City. And not because of that, but because we would have stayed with her. And she's in a little apartment, and I'd be on a futon or in a chair or somewhere. And that's not a vacation. I would pay for her to come to see us, and that was cheaper on me. And then we could go on vacation. And then my ex-wife, she would go and maybe take one or two of the boys with her. But with my boys, they were all involved in sports. And my oldest played quarterback in high school, so he had to be there all summer. My middle one was on a travel basketball team, so he had windows. They had things they were invested in, and they didn't want to miss. And when you're a leader in something, especially a high school football program in the South, you don't miss. You need to be there doing your thing. And the work ethic that they learn from doing that stuff is amazing. And they still had time to be a kid and all that. So when I was growing up, being an only child, I could bring a friend on a lot of vacations. I couldn't bring just any friend. Because I'd throw out a name or two. My dad said, no, that ain't going to happen. Because my dad was a mailman. He knew how everybody lived back then. Or that kid drives them nuts. I had one go-to, my buddy Terry Royal. Terry, if you're listening, shout out Terry Royal. Terry came to Chickamauga in 5th grade, I believe. fifth or sixth, and we became best friends and remained that way through elementary, middle school. We're always friends, but got different interests. And Terry fell in love, and Terry got married and still married today to Susan. I love you. Get that blouse ready. We're going out on the town. And inside joke. And my dad and mom were like, Terry's family's good people. He's well behaved. He's a good kid. He can go with us anytime. Mickey Wilson got to go with us a time or two. A couple other people that I grew up around that got to go with me. But I always have to bring somebody. I remember we went to Florida and we were like 13. And you know what you do in Florida when it rains? You go to the movies because it rains at least every day, but maybe not a lot. You just work through it. But this day, man, it was cats and dogs all day. And my mom and dad said, okay, we'll drop y'all off at the movie theater. I was like, oh my God, we get to go by ourselves. What'd you see? Rocky III, baby. Rocky III, Clubber Lang's debut, Mr. T. I can quote that movie like the Gospels. I mean, I know that movie, upside down the other. One of my favorite all time because I was at that age where that was a big deal. Clubber Lang, a.k.a. Mr. T, got discovered as the world's toughest bouncer competition that came on TV. He won it. I'd never seen anybody like him. Had a mohawk, had them feather earrings running down. He wore like some kind of vest. I don't know, man. He was just a bad dude and ended up being a believer. Good guy. But went and saw Rocky III. Now, what's crazy is I remember that like it was yesterday. And that had nothing to do with the beach. That was just something we did while we were there. Terry got drugged to a lot of Brock events, man. We did a Brock family getaway every year at Cumberland Mountain State Park, Crossville, Tennessee. We'd rent a cabin. And this cabin, guys, I don't know if y'all do this kind of stuff with your family. And we'd have 30 people come out to this thing. And the upstairs was full of bunks and the downstairs. And the women stayed up. And it's the only time my mom and daddy didn't sleep together. You know, everywhere they went, they were together. But this one weekend every year, we'd leave. We had to figure it out when high school football wasn't going on because we always had a Brock playing something. And we'd pick a weekend and we would go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and come back late Sunday. And man, you talking about fun, you know, and then it'd be all the Brocks, but then the 5 grandkids would all bring a buddy. And then my uncle would invite a family that he worked with that were good people. And then maybe my other uncle, maybe, just depends. So we'd have like 30 of us. We'd play touch football. We'd have a softball game. We'd do the s'mores, the campground, the whole thing. And the highlight of it was the fact that, you know, and this is totally immature and totally true. The highlight would be when you finally get everybody to bed, you got 15 men in bunk beds and you're told, go to sleep. And then your uncle starts breaking wind, you know, and you're like, and you start laughing. And then be quiet over there, go to sleep. And then your other uncle does it. And I'm thinking, what did these men eat? My God. Oh, I know why. We had hot dogs and chili, you know, and they're throwing down beers probably without anybody seeing, you know, and then the snoring would start, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we ever going to get any sleep? And then I'm giggling, be quiet, go to sleep. So just this crazy adventure that is going on. And here's Terry Royal stuck right in the middle of it. And Terry's up there and we're playing football. And I was like, hey, you hold it. And I'm going to kick it. And I kicked it, but instead of kicking the football, I kicked his hand, broke his finger. We had to go to the hospital, you know. And I think about it today, man, you got to call somebody and you're responsible for their child. And you're like, hey, we're up here to ER. He broke his finger. You know, they were like, okay, thanks for taking care of him. It's a different world. And I think people knew each other better. See, now we know each other through social media, which is that really knowing people? Yeah, you know some things. And people get on there and act like idiots and voice their opinion. Some crazy gal that lived across from my youngest son did some post and I'm watching it and she's got like 100,000 followers. And I'm like, who is this woman? I mean, why would it? But there's 100,000 people just like her, nosy, and talking stuff she don't know. That's what social media can do. You can say something in a camera that you wouldn't say to somebody's face. And that's what I don't like about it. I like the fact that it's a platform to express yourself and your talents, your interest. And I never comment on somebody's stuff if I don't agree. I just move on. I mean, I ain't met anybody yet that's convinced me of something about my politics or my religion at 58 years old that made me go, oh, thank you for sharing that. I think I'll change my views. It don't happen. It's just people want to rant. They want to go on and on and on. I try to find common ground. So I encourage you, man, to find some common ground. So, here we are, and, I'm going to take these vacations, but then something happened. I became a teenager, a little bit older, 17, 18, 19. And Terry Royal was married by 19. So he wasn't going. And I started taking girlfriends on these trips. And my parents say, you could take a girlfriend. And I did a few times, not many, but I remember I was like, I guess I was 19 and I was dating this girl, and we've been dating a little while, and we were going to Panama City and my family, family vacation. And my parents were like, do you want to bring so-and-so with us? I was like, well, sure. So I asked her, and she's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And I remember 19 years old and she was 19 and going over to her house, and we're hanging out. And her mama said, and her mom and daddy's in there, and we're just kind of hanging out a little bit. And she's like, Rich's parents are pretty conservative people. Why don't you go put on one of those bathing suits you're going to take to the beach and make sure that, he thinks they won't freak out. And I'm like, what now? In my mind. So she did. And I ain't saying her name because she might be listening, but man, come on, somebody, man, she was built. I'll just say that. And she comes out in this bathing suit, and there wasn't much to it. I mean, it was a bikini, but there wasn't much to it. And she's like, what do you think? And I'm like, I'm in here with your mother, and your father is looking at me like, don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact. I'm like, I think that'll be fine. I think that'll work. And I'm like, and my mama, man, when we went to the beach and she took the shirt part off, the t-shirt, and she's out there in that, I saw my mama just go, oh my gosh, little Richie over here's girlfriend, 19 years old. But it's a different vibe. We'd go out to eat together, but it was us having our vacation, they had theirs. Then you get a little bit older and you have a family, and then you start taking vacations, if you're fortunate, with your parents, and you're married now, or maybe you have kids. And then we got to experience that too. And you got built-in childcare, so that's awesome. But you get to make memories. And I think the thing I want you to see about family vacays is making memories out of the moments. And some are great memories. Most of them are. But let me tell you one real quick that happened to me. That cousin, remember me and him going to Disney World and him ditching me to tell me to go do what I wanted to do? Well, when he was 16 and I would have been 10, the whole family went to Holmes Beach, which is down past Bradenton, a.k.a. Sarasota. Come on, somebody. From Hog Jow Road in Chickamauga, that's a long ways. And my aunt, my uncle, my mama, my daddy, my cousins, and me. And my uncle had a business. He owned a brake shoe supplier. He owned his own business. And he had an old work truck that he sold to a guy. This is long before eBay and social media, marketplace. He sold this old, it's like a UPS truck, but it was called Jewel T. Come on, somebody. You might remember that if you're old school. And it was orange and white, and it said Jewel across it, but it was faded out. It just said we. All it said on it was we. And it was a UPS type truck, and the passenger door wouldn't shut, and it had no AC in it, and it leaked oil like crazy. We bought a case of oil, and we had to stop and pour oil in it about every 80 miles. And they took a lawn chair. You couldn't do this today. They took a lawn chair like we got at Kmart, and they roped it in there and made me a chair because I begged to go with him. And they're like, okay, you follow us and y'all can ride together, but stay with us. Do not leave. Follow us or we'll follow you. And we made it all the way to the Florida state line. We'd stopped and changed oil in it like 8 times. We get a little bit ahead of them because traffic got backed up. And I saw a sign that said, "Welcome to Florida. Welcome Center. Free orange juice." I was like, oh man, I want some of that. Free orange juice. Let's stop. And my cousin's like, we can't stop. I said, let's stop. I got to pee. Okay, we'll stop. And we had walkie-talkies, so we'd talk back and forth to my dad, my uncle. We got out of range. And this is the 1900s. My uncle had a CB radio. So they're listening to CB radio and find out there's state troopers up ahead catching speeders. And they don't see the Jewel T van. So they speed up, thinking that we're speeding to catch us. They pass the Welcome Center. Our battery went out on the walkie-talkie. They're ahead of us. We don't know it. We get back on. They keep looking for us. They don't see us. They turn around, go back looking for us. We almost caught them, and then we had to stop and change the oil. Oh, geez. So here's what happened. 1978, 79, we got separated from them. And this is when you didn't have cell phones. You struggled to find a payphone and who we were going to call because we didn't know where they were going. We didn't know we knew the man buying this vehicle, but we didn't know where he lived. We didn't know his name, his last name, nothing. We got separated and my parents couldn't find me and my cousin for 18 hours. We're on the road, just driving back and forth. We don't know where we're supposed to go. And he kept his cool, man. I give him credit. He told me later on in life, he was scared because he saw how scared I was, and it made him even more. But he knew he couldn't show it because I'd been a mess. It's kind of funny the first hour or two, and then it turned into 6, and then it got dark, and then it turned into the next day. And we got a little bit of money. We stopped and ate at some joint. And come to find out, my parents and my aunt and uncle contacted the Florida State Patrol. And they had a missing persons out on us. And they told my parents to stay at a hotel. They would find us and bring us this hotel. After 3 hours, my dad said, I ain't waiting around. Him and my mother got in the car, left my aunt and uncle at the hotel, and they started driving 200 miles back and forth over and over and did that 3 or 4 times. And we passed. We're in a Jewel T van that says we on it, for God's sakes. Easy to find. We passed a lot of law enforcement. Nobody pulled us over. Nobody stopped us. And we're driving and somebody pulls up beside us and they motion for us to pull over. And it's the guy that's buying the truck. He and his family had been in Gatlinburg. Because, see, everybody in Florida wants to go to the mountains for vacation, and everybody in the mountains goes to the beach. Come on, somebody. So this family pulls us over, and he says, hey, he said my cousin's name. He goes, yes, sir. He goes, I'm so-and-so. I'm the one buying this truck. What are y'all doing? We told him what happened. He said, follow us home. We're 2 hours from home, and we'll figure it out. And because we knew nothing. We just knew we didn't know where our parents were. So we do that, and about an hour from their house, I see this Lincoln Continental that my uncle owned coming over the median on I-75, shooting across traffic, and it's my dad and my mama. And they found us. They didn't know we'd gotten help finally. But we were separated for like 18 hours. And man, when I got out of that car, I've never been held so tight as I was by my mother and my dad. And they saw everything was okay. So they weren't mad. They were just relieved, and police got involved and everything was good. And everything was perfect until somebody in the family said, how did y'all get separated? and my cousin threw me under the bus. He said he had to pee, but I think he went in there to get free orange juice. And I'm like, and I've heard that for 48 years. Any family event, I hear that, and it gets brought up. And when my mother was alive, my aunt still is. She's 90 years old or near it. She'll say, "Oh, we didn't care. We were just so glad they were safe." So, that's a crazy memory from a family vacation. Now, the vacation ended up great. Everybody had fun, all that stuff. So, if you're at a place in life where you say, "Man, I wish I could afford that kind of stuff," man, fake it till you make it. Make a memory out of the moment. You ain't got to go to Disney World to have fun with your kids. Man, you can go out in the backyard, go to the park, take them to the lake, there's a ton of free events going on in your community. Find some things to do, make it special. Take a picnic, do something. But my suggestion is find something they like to do. And then also maybe find something that's new to you. Me and my boys years ago when Frisbee golf came out, I said, "Y'all want to go try that?" "Sure, let's do it." Man, we got into that as a little side thing that we'd go do. And we went for months. We would go and play Frisbee golf. And it was something to hang out, and it was free. They gave us a Frisbee, and we just hung out and laughed and had fun. So find you some ways to make memories out of the moments. Hey, come see me. We got some great shows coming. You can go to Big Rich Broughton and see my schedule. But the best way to follow my schedule is Facebook and Instagram. I post all my shows there. The shows that you buy tickets from other places, I don't necessarily post on my website, but I post it on all my social media. And I've got a show coming up in Cartersville. It's going to be a great one on Saturday, July 25th. It's going to be myself and Scott Bedgood out of Chattanooga. Scott's open for Dusty Slay. Scott has played the Ryman people, the mother of all of it, the Ryman Auditorium. Scott's a great comedian. It's a clean show, good people. You can stay right here in downtown Cartersville and have a great night of entertainment, go to dinner and a show, and get your tickets at BigRichBrot.com. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.